Today, I'm recommending 10 books that I've read in the past and that had an impact on me. I hope you will read them, you will enjoy them. I hope it will inspire you as much as it inspired me. And here we go with the 10 books. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meaning podcast. Today, I'm very excited to share with you 10 books that I've read, 10 books that I enjoy, 10 books that I think would be beneficial for you to read. There is no special order. It's not the top 10. It's not the top 10 best that I've ever read. But it's 10 books that really had an impact on me. And I wanted to share with you. I always like to share books. And I also had the conversation with friends. I said, Eric, why you read this? Or can you recommend that? So here we go. The 10 books I'm going to be talking about today are in no order of importance, but The Joy of Success from Susan Ford Collins, The Business Model Generation from Alexander Osterwalder, Yves Pigneur, and it's designed by Alan Smith, The Oak Method from Eric Uberman, Trust Me, I'm Lying from Ryan Holiday, Who, Not How from Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy, The Alter Ego Effect from Todd Herman, Building a Story Brand from Donald Miller, The Psychology of Money from Morgan Housel, and One Last Talk from Philip McKernan, and last but not least, Before It's Too Late from me, because I want to share with you as well the book I published recently and why I did that. So those are the 10 books I'm going to talk about today, and hopefully will inspire you to read them. Obviously, let me know if you have any question on that, and if you've read it, if you agree with me that it's a book that should be recommended in general. So the first one is The Joy of Success from Susan Ford Collins. Susan is an amazing woman. I had pleasure of meeting her thanks to the Strategic Forum in Miami, of which she's one of the co-founder. And Susan has been working and coaching people all her life. She read several books, but this one is really the main one that she started with. It's called The Joy of Success, 10 Essential Skills for Getting the Success You Want. I think it's fascinating how she wrote the book, because she was analyzing what made people successful. And she actually realized that there were 10 essential skills that every successful person, men, women, regardless of the culture and the country, were applying. And this book has been having a great impact on me. I think it's very interesting, the 10 skills she's mentioning. It's also very concrete. You can think about it afterwards to apply it for yourself. And it's also a great way of to reflect on what you're good at, what you could be improving, and also be aware of the different skills that are needed to be successful. And there's also one thing that she always mentioned to me that I really love, and it's called a success file. And the idea is to I have an Evernote file with that. So every positive news, every moment in my life that is that I consider a success, I file it. So when things are not as exciting some days, it's always good to go back to it. So my first recommendation, The Joy of Success from Susan Ford Collins. Second book I want to talk about today is The Famous Business Model Generation. If you know me, if you've been in one of my workshops, or if you had the opportunity to talk to me about your business, this is something that I always refer to. The Business Model Generation, very interesting story. Alexander Osterwalder was actually writing a PhD on business model. It became, his business. And the idea is to have different blocks that you're thinking about for any type of business. And you can Google that, the Business Model Generation. There's also an amazing tool called Business Model Canvas that you can download. And you will see, if you Google Business Model Canvas, you can type almost any company, any major company, they have a business model canvas on them, but also something that is used with any startup or business. Again, any size of business, it's amazing, this tool. Divide in different blocks. I like to start with the value proposition, but you also look at the customer segment that you have, the relationship you have with your customer, the different channel that you're using for distribution, sales channel, communication, and of course, the different type of revenue, the key partners, the cost. I mean, everything is mapped into one box with questions for each box. And then you use different Post-it to brainstorm a business model. So no need anymore to do market research for 6 months. In few hours on your own with your team, and you can definitely look at your business model or brainstorm a new business model. Once again, Business Model Generation from Alexander Osterwalder and Yves Pigneur, and designed by Alan Smith. That's number 2. Number 3, it's a book written by my friend Eric Uberman. Eric is a fascinating person. He is leading the leading, I think, agency, one of the agency which is growing the fastest in America, digital agency, and really position the term of fractional CMO, and explain how in the book, which is the OG method, Eric Uberman. So it's the OG Group, his company, and how they're applying it. But it's really divided in 3 principles that goes around awareness, nurturing, and building trust. And Eric goes on with different example, different subsection, very concrete as well, give you a lot of ideas on how to implement that. And I think that whether you are a seasoned entrepreneur or a beginner in the field, in terms of marketing, you should all read the OG method from Eric Uberman. And it's written in a way that, for me, again, very concrete. I feel that I'm listening to him. So that's my 3rd recommendation. A 4th book, and this is probably the author I've been reading the most recently, and I'll speak about other books that he wrote another time. Ryan Holiday, the one who wrote about Stillness is the Key, the one who wrote Perennial Seller, and thanks, Jason, for sending me the book. But this one is frightening, quite frankly, enlightening. And it's called Trust Me, I'm Lying, Confessions of a Media Manipulator. And in this book, Ryan explained what he's been doing with some very well-known retail chain, or author in terms of launching a product using social media. Very frightening, but also enlightening in the sense that one of the points I remember in the book is explaining that bloggers actually are paid by the number of page, and so they need to produce and produce and produce. So when it comes to verifying the information you're publishing or correcting it afterwards, forget about it. And there's also some example that Ryan is sharing about how media chief are looking at the type of news they're launching. They want to make the buzz. One of the point that they mentioned is they believe that because of the crowdsourcing, if the information is not correct, it will be corrected afterwards. I personally, of course, disagree with that, because if it's something related to an individual, the damage is done. And it's like in the old times when you had front page news, which was not true. And then when the truth came out, the same newspaper had to publish the fact that it was not true, but it was on page 25 in very little letter at the bottom so that nobody would read. But anyway, fascinating read. Voila, Trust Me, I'm Lying, Confession of a Media Manipulator from Ryan Holiday. The next book I want to recommend to you is from one of the, if not the master guru in terms of coaching, Dan Sullivan, from a strategic coach who wrote with Dr. Benjamin Hardy. It's interesting how this book came about and how Benjamin Hardy was reading the one sheet that Dan Sullivan prepared in terms of the filtering a project and what would the project be successful and how. and not getting involved afterwards. But this book is called Who, Not How. And that's a principle that apply for anybody who's listening, for sure, for entrepreneurs and business owners. Instead of thinking that you are irreplaceable, instead of thinking that you should do it, if not, it's never going to be done as good as you do. Instead of thinking that nobody else can do that, it's too complicated, it's too added value. I would encourage you to go the opposite way. And for everything you're doing, and for every task you're actually responsible for today, whether it's private or professional, make a list and try to see who can do it instead of you. I always like to share with people I'm working with. You list all the tasks, then you have 3 columns. You do it yourself, you delegate, or you stop doing. And so the middle column, the delegate column, is the one where you can definitely think about who else can do it for you. But even the first column, the things that you believe you should be doing, I think it's always good to review it once in a while and ask yourself the question, who could do this if it wasn't me? So who, not how, Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Moving on to the next book, Todd Herman is a fascinating person. Coaching athlete, coaching individual. Todd has a fascinating story and very inspiring story as well. And he wrote this book, The Alter Ego Effect. And basically he's explaining that every athlete at one moment when they really have to dig deep or go above what they would usually do, they call this alter ego, this Superman, Superwoman, this person that they have defined as their alter ego when they need to put the engine in overdrive. And that's something that can be applied for anyone. You don't have to be an athlete. But from the moment that you, like anybody, understand what is keeping you in your life from achieving even more and leveraging the power of an alter ego, not only Todd explained why it's important, but it definitely give you the way of doing it yourself and understanding how you create your alter ego, how you use this alter ego to overcome challenges in your life. So again, phenomenal book, The Alter Ego Effect, The Power of Secret Identities to Transform Your Life by Todd Herman. Which now leads me to my next book. Next book recommendation is Building a Story Brand from Donald Miller. If you haven't read it yet, and if you're thinking in 2023, in this year, to start a business, revisit your business, reinvent your business, you need to read this. It's very well explained. It's kind of funny because when I'm coaching people, people ask me, what do you do? And I said, Yoda in Star Wars, because obviously, as you know, I'm a big fan of Yoda. I try to be the Yoda for business owners. And that's what I read as well in this book. So obviously, it speaks to me twice. But the whole methodology is explained. You're looking at storyboard. When you've read this book, you're probably not going to watch any movie the same way as before. But it's also not only explaining you the methodology and what is the journey. They have this, what they call the SB7, the story brand and the 7-step. But it's going into the detail of each steps and helping you define your story brand for your own company. So highly recommended. Donald Miller, Building a Story Brand, Clarify Your Message so customers will listen. And the tagline here is use the 7 elements of great storytelling to grow your business. That's exactly what it is. Once again, Donald explained the whole journey, the 7 steps, and go into the detail of how you can apply that for your business. Donald Miller, Building a Story Brand. My last 3 books that I want to talk about today. This one is absolutely phenomenal, and it's called The Psychology of Money from Morgan Housel. Timeless lessons on wealth Greed, and Happiness. Fascinating book about money, different stories, different theme. You have No One's Crazy, Luck and Risk, Confounding Compounding, Getting Wealthy versus Staying Wealthy. A lot of theme, and always for each chapter, a specific story, a very impactful story. And why is it called The Psychology of Money? I think it's also something that it's helping you reflect on your values, what's important for you, and your relationship to money. So highly recommend it. I want to share one of the example that I always remember. The chapter is called Never Enough. And it tells the story of somebody that came from very humbling beginnings and rise to the number one, becoming number one of the one of the largest firm in the world. And he was worth $100 million. So just imagine $100 million. Moreover, if you're not coming from money and you had to build that yourself, but it was not enough. He wanted to be a billionaire, and then he went into insider trading and went to jail. So the chapter is called Never Enough. And that's one of the questions I'm asking myself always is how much is enough? Because we all hear about the next unicorn, all the entrepreneurs that are going to build the next unicorn. And then there's some entrepreneurs like me who actually are very focused on building wealth and very focused on building businesses, but not necessarily unicorn, because between nothing and the unicorn, there's the majority of the world. And there's a lot of opportunities that can be leveraged without necessarily going into unicorn mode, although building teams and enjoying life and making money. So highly recommended, The Psychology of Money from Morgan Housel. The last two books are more on a personal development side, but this one is for, again, a fascinating person. It's called Philip McKernan. And it's called One Last Talk. One Last Talk, Why Your Truth Matters and How to Speak It. Philip is a fascinating person, as I mentioned, and he came with this concept of the one last talk. And as he wrote himself, said, what is one last talk? One last talk is an invitation to find your truth and speak it out loud to at least one person. And it's the framework to help you do it. And also another part that I want to read out to you, an answer to another question. Why is it called One Last Talk? And this is what Philip writes about it. Unless I set the frame that this is literally the last talk ever, people won't go deep enough. If it were your first talk, well, then there'd be no urgency. There'd be no need to go deep. It's just the first one. You can always go deep later. Once you tell people that this is their one last talk, it challenges them. It focuses the mind and opens the heart by making them face death, even if it's only a metaphor for death. These are talks that people have usually never shared before, and the frame of death, of finality, is what gets them there. It is a fascinating read. It's very inspiring. It's stories. I don't want to spoil it. I highly recommend that you read it. I'm sure it will inspire you. One more or more stories will inspire you. I hope it will, as it did with me. So One Last Talk from Philip McKernan. And last but not least, yeah, I'm doing this podcast, so I picked the books, right? But I'm very proud of this. Before It's Too Late, A Love Letter to My Daughters in America. It's the story of why we left Europe. It's the story of the rise of anti-Semitism, the rise of Islamism, the coordinateness of leaders, and what happened to Europe. And that explains also the situation today. It's why we left, how we came to America, what we see as similar here, and what I see as similar here, and what I see as different as well. It's over 300 pages and 175 links and reference, so that anybody who wants to read it and just go and research more about what I write about, or it's so stunned that doesn't believe me, it's totally fine. Go and check those 175 links. It's really a legacy project. Obviously, nothing to do with business, but that's also something that I want to share with you. So, besides Before It's Too Late, a love letter to my daughters in America, I spoke about Philip McKernan, One Last Talk. I spoke about The Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel. I spoke about Building a Story Brand from Donald Miller, The Alter Ego Effect from Todd Herman, Who, Not How from Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy, Trust Me, I'm Lying, Confessions of a Media Manipulator from Ryan Holiday, The Oak Method from Eric Uberman, Business Model Generations from Alexander Osterwalder, Yves Pinier, and designed by Alan Smith. And last but certainly not least, The Joy of Success, 10 Essential Skills for Getting the Success You Want from Susan Ford Collins. I hope you'll enjoy reading these books. Let me know. Reach out to me afterwards, which one you read and why. If you have any recommendations from books, please let me know as well. And once again, this is not my favorite top 10. It's just 10 books that I enjoy reading and one writing. And I will definitely come back later with the other books that I recommend. Thank you very much and talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So please let me know if you read any of those books. Let me know your feedback. Let me know any recommendations. And if you believe that that can interest somebody in your network, please share this episode of the Business of Meeting podcast with them. If you want to reach out to me, connect on LinkedIn or join my Facebook group, www.eventbusinessformula.com/group. Thank you. Bye-bye.